Hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Happy Monday to you. I have recently returned from Gamehole Con, and I have thoughts. I thought I would share them with you all. Um, I just quickly wrote down some main points, ideas that I want to make sure that I talk about, but I'm probably just gonna talk for a little bit, ramble for a little bit. I'm happy to ask or answer any questions that folks have about Gamehole. Um, to sort of set the stage, this is my first time going to Gamehole Con in general, either as a attendee or as a vendor. So first time at this con, but not my first time at a con. I've had booths at cons for a number of years now. I've done PAX many times, Gen Con many times. I've done Origins, so I'm not new to conventions, but I'm new to this convention. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what it was like, and why I probably will never ever go back to Gamehole Con as a vendor, with an asterisk on that. Um, oh, sweet. Hey, Keegan, good to see you. Um, okay, so Gamehole, it is pitched as the largest RPG focused. Oh boy, the plus one meeting crew is here. Gamehole is pitched as the largest RPG convention, like RPG focused convention. Um, Meaning it's supposed to be about RPGs. Um, that was immediately appealing to me as somebody who was going to sell who sells RPGs, because I go, okay, let's just say Gen Con has 90,000 people. Now, is that 90,000 potential customers? No, not really, not realistically. Of that 90,000, many of them have no interest in RPGs. Those that do, small subsection of that. Then you gotta slice that up even further into people who are interested in indie RPGs. It gets sliced up. So you don't have a 90,000 customer base at Gen Con. So I thought, ooh, okay, well, Gamehole, at least ostensibly, everybody who walks by could be interested. Or at the very least, I don't have to explain what this thing is that I'm selling. Because that oftentimes happens at Gen Con. Not so much at PAX, but like at Gen Con, a lot of folks will come up just kind of wholly unfamiliar with role-playing games, or certainly any kind of concept outside of D&D. So I'm not explaining that to people, which is really great. Hey, Erica, so good to see you. Erica was a delight to hang out with at Gamehole. She and the Whole Story Games Chicago crew are just really cool. And we'll talk about that. What is a not D&D? Really good question, Tony. Um, so that's the pitch. That's the pitch for Gamehole, and I had been recommended to try it out by a few folks, and I tried going last year, but I tried way too late into the process, and I got on the wait list and everything, and I just didn't get a booth, which was fine. Um, this time around, I applied early, got in. How much is a booth at Gamehole cost? $750. That's how much a 10 by 10 booth costs. So $750. I did not do the booth by myself. I split it with Will Yobst, of Good Luck Press. Now, Will and I had already discussed splitting booths for both Gen Con and Gamehole a long time ago. So we kind of already knew going into this, we had this idea. So $375 is sort of my booth cost going into this. I am going to talk about numbers like money, so just be aware of that. 375, that's just the booth. Then of course there's the hotel, staying by, gas, food, all of that sort of stuff. So Will and I drove up. We didn't drive together, but we drove up from my house, and we set up. I will say that setup at Gamehole was the easiest that it's ever been for me at any con. Probably because it's so small. Probably because there's not there's not a lot of people. In general, the vendor hall is quite small. It does not take you very long to get through. It's never crowded, so it's very easy to get through. Setup was easy because we could just pull up our car. Oh, I am curious, Tony, what the actual numbers are for attendance. You could pull up your car into a parking lot right behind the exhibitor hall, walk in and out. Got my stuff out of my car in 2 loads, super easy. Um, the the complication was that uh, you have a booth number assigned to you, and none of the booths are labeled with numbers. So I know I'm booth 18, but I have no idea which booth is 18. So I gotta like look it up on a map and then deduce where it might be based off of the orientation of the map and the actual orientation of the hall. That was a fun riddle. The location itself, then, it takes place in Madison, which is about 2 hours away from where I live. Not super far, not super hard to get to. Um, Actually, it's super easy to get to. So no complaints on the distance I had to drive. In fact, it's the closest con now for me. It used to be Gen Con. The location itself, it was at the Alliant Energy Center or Exhibitor Hall, and that is a convention center that is kind of in the middle of fucking nowhere. Madison is just an interestingly shaped city in general. It's on an isthmus, and so it's kind of like a weird ring with like a line through it. It kind of looks like the no, the symbol that you put like over a cigarette to say that no, no smoking. It's kind of what Madison is shaped like, and we're down at one part of the ring. Um, and this place is, like I said, it's in the middle of nowhere, and that kind of sucks a lot. It's you can pull up, you can park for free at the con. That's really nice. You know, a lot of other cons, either there's no parking or parking is very expensive. The reason, though, all of these positives I'm going to say are like a monkey's paw curling with each one. Great, free parking. You can find a spot. What that means is you are now trapped here. You cannot escape this convention area. There's nothing you can walk to. Absolutely nothing. And so if you want to leave, you have to go drive somewhere. And there was like a running joke amongst all of us that everything in Madison was like 20 minutes away, always, no matter where you were going. So it's not like you could just like hop in the car and drive 5 minutes and be somewhere fun or cool. So you're kind of just trapped. Once you go for the day, that's where you're gonna be until you decide to leave. So I do not care for the location. Now I did hear that that location is undergoing some construction next year, and so it's not going to be there, and they're gonna have some other location. And I think it was Will who was mentioning this, like, usually when you sign convention locations, they're multi-year leases, so there's probably going to be a new location for a few years. I really hope it's in Milwaukee. Milwaukee's a much bigger city. It's a much more interesting city. Personally, it's closer to me, but also like you'll be able to like walk and go to places. So I hope that is what happens. We'll see. So location, I do not recommend it. There's a hotel like within walking distance, so that's the place you can walk to. The Con's hotel. We didn't stay there. We stayed at another hotel. Um, Keegan, if parking is available at a convention center, it's because they are not full enough not to have parking. Spooky. Yeah, and like you could tell in the first few days, like the lot was really, really easy to park in. It was only on Saturday where they even had to have an attendant out there to kind of like flag people to go towards empty spots. Otherwise, it was really easy to just find a spot. Length in hours. The thing that always baffled me about this con as we moved up to it was that it is a 4-day con. And I don't understand why this is a 4-day con. Why? Why is this con start on Thursday and go through Sunday? It's insane to me. There's just not enough to do to justify that. I don't think, especially again, because you're trapped at this convention area and there's like 2 different buildings you can go to. Tony, I kind of think that might be the reason. Tony says like, because if Gen Con does it, we should also. It's kind of, I truly don't understand it. Um, PAX, which is way bigger than this, is a 3-day convention. Like, again, continuing the reason that PAX is my favorite con, that's just one more reason I like PAX more so. I would rather drive 12 hours to PAX for a 3-day con than 2 hours to Madison for a 4-day con at Gamehole. I simply don't understand it, and Thursday was fucking awful with how slow it was. Thursday, to highlight the Grognards thing, that's when they were there, and they were the only people there. Um, Will and I basically really clocked early on that our people, the people who buy our games, were absolutely not present on Thursday, uh, a little bit on Friday, and kind of then started to show up on Saturday. So I don't understand the 4-day con. It simply doesn't make sense to me. And then from an hours perspective, the vendor hall is open 10 to 6. So it's an 8-hour shift. That's pretty typical, except for Sunday, it closes at 4. It's pretty typical. But again, given the number of people who are at this thing, the hours and the days for the vendor hall just simply doesn't make any sense. The other reason the hours don't gel well with this experience is because what we learned very, very quickly is that this is a con people go to play games, not to buy games. It's very much mirrors Origins in that regard. People don't go to Origins to buy games. They go there to play lots of games. People go to Gamehole to play role-playing games. And so during the day, during the vendor hall, it becomes so obviously clear when you've hit one of the windows in which all the games are scheduled, because there were multiple times, and this is starting to get into the slow idea, in which there were more vendors in the hall than there were guests, which is nuts, absolutely nuts. To have that many, and there's not a lot of us in terms of vendors. The one busy time during the day would be 5 to 6, because there were no games being run during that time, I think, or very few games by comparison. So it was the one time where people had been playing games for all day long, and then they go make their last hour sprint at the vendor hall. And to say it was busy is being generous. So yeah, it was really, really slow. And I'm talking single digit sales for the entire day on every day, respectively, like for Will and I. Not combined, but like for Good Luck Press, single digit sales oftentimes, or maybe a little bit into double digits. Gale RPG's single digit sales, maybe getting a little bit into double digits for the entire 8-hour shift. There were days where Will and I would average less than an hour, or less than a sale an hour, which is just like, what is going on? It's just like really, really crazy. Um, so, and like to speak further to the idea of slowness, single digit, like, titles, not in not in dollars, because we don't sell anything that's a single digit dollar. Um, but yeah, like, so like at the end of the day, I made 7 sales on one day, and Will was the same, and it's just like, what the fuck is happening? Um, like it was so dreary. Like walking around the hall, you see vendors just so sad and like bored. Like we're all just kind of zoned out. We're all dissociating during this time period. People are on their phones. People are just doodling. Um, I'm really thankful, and Will and I are just really thankful that we split the booth with each other. Because if either of us had done it alone, I think we would have lost our minds. What it would have honestly, realistically, would have happened if I was by myself, I would have left early. I would have packed up and gone home on Friday. Um, because that's the big thing that I want to just say on like worth, which I'll get to. But I would have left on Friday, and the penalty for leaving early is obviously you don't get invited back for future cons, which is like not a penalty to me because I don't plan on going back. Um, so I would have just left. But I was there with Will, and we were keeping each other sane, and there was brief glimpses of positivity before and after the vendor hall every day. The thing that was personally frustrating to me was this question of how's it going. This is something that Will and I both experienced when talking to other vendors, and it's something that I wish people were a little bit more honest about. We have this instinct when somebody says, "Hey, how's it going?" to say, "Oh, it's going good." When it comes to vendor interactions, when in reality everybody was having a hard time. And then when somebody would say it's going good, and then Will and I would give them the honest answer about how it was going for us, they then would tell us that it was going shitty for them as well. That's a frustrating thing to me. I do my annual review streams in which I very honestly tell you how Gila RPGs went. And so I just wish we were better about that. I wish we were just better of going, hey, this is not, we're not making money. Then none of we're not making any sales. And people just wouldn't tell you that until you told them you were doing it. There were some folks who were doing well, and I know, and more power to them. But Free League, going up to Free League and being like, "Hey, how's it going?" And they're going, of course they're going to say, "Yeah, it's going good, really good." And then going, "Yeah, but how's it really going? Because it's not good for us." And they're going, "Yeah, it's slow. It's not good. It could be better." If Free League's suffering at this con, do you know who was doing well? Well, we'll talk about it here in these next few sections. Is DCC. The Goodman Games folks were doing well because that's what the old heads that were at this con were there to buy. They figured out their game decades ago, and they just buy more stuff about them. Hey, Roland, good to see you. Yeah, Tony, absolutely. There are many ways to value a con, and it's not just on certainly not just on money. Money's the number one thing for me because I have a child now, a new child, and so being away from her for 5 days, this better be fucking worth it, and it's not. But yes, having a good time, meeting friends, running games, all of that absolutely can add value. The vendors that I was talking to were largely not doing a lot of those things. We're mostly there to sling books, and so we were trapped at our booths for 8 hours a day and just not having a good time. Grognards were the number one customer, largest demographic at this, by and large, certainly the first 2 days. I had a really great interaction on day one. Within the first hour, I think, a guy comes up, sees Rune, he goes, "There's already a game named this." And I go, "Okay." Because, yeah, Robin Laws created a game called Rune 24 years ago or something like that hasn't been in print for 20 years. And I get, "Okay." And then he goes, "The first thing I do when I'm making a game is Google it." And I go, "Okay." He goes, "I think the guy that wrote it is here." And I go, "Okay." Every part of this interaction is me going, "What do I need to tell you to make you leave me alone, to go away?" I know Will wasn't here during this time because I know 1000% Will would have said something because Will is fearless and I am very conflict aversive. So I just kind of smiled and nodded along until this guy left me alone and walked away. That man returned on Sunday. Came back on Sunday with 2 friends, and one of the friends was really interested in my games, and she ended up buying 2 things. Really great. The other friend that he was there with looked at Rune and said, "Oh, I think I've heard of this one." And the guy went, "Oh, here's why you've heard about it, or why you've heard of it, because." And then he went and he just repeated his entire spiel to his friend. And his friend's like, "I think I've heard about it from somewhere else." But it's just this guy was so ready to be yeah, 2 things in 1 hour, Tony. It was it was a rush. It was a real rush. So there's just a lot of people there. Imagine being conflict averse. There were just a lot of people there that were clearly not Will and I's customers. Like there's a clear mental math that they are able to calculate immediately upon clocking our booth, where they go like, this is not for me. But the one booth that I did see, no, he didn't mention which games he had written. I didn't think to ask. Um, but who was selling, right? Who was selling or what was selling? Um, Goodman Games seemed pretty busy most of the time. Anytime I looked down to see them, they were doing well. So not surprising that the DCC people just bought more DCC stuff. Um, and the folks who one of our booth neighbors to the left were like um, gaming accessory sellers. So like dice, uh, boxes to hold your dice, bags to hold your dice, things like that, right? And they were doing well, like because people want tchotchkes, they want knickknacks and things like that. It was actually that is another thing that very much mirrors the experience of Origins, in which people at Origins weren't buying games, but they were buying like things like merch. Um, and I want one thing I want to say this is like obviously I can speak to my experience on like sales and stuff, but I want you to know that I'm not just saying this like this is my experience and it's universally true. Like I'm relaying information that was told to me from many other people at this con. Like those of us who eventually started to have honest conversations about the con, like this was a thing that happened a lot. Which is why I also mentioned the Origins thing. Like Origins sucked and I haven't gone back since, and it wasn't just me. Like if Patrick Leader of Leader Games, the people who make Root, says this was an awful time, like it's not just me, right? It's not just Spencer Campbell of Gila RPGs is complaining because he had a bad con. Um, so yeah, that was what was selling. You know who else was selling really good? The other booth neighbor on the other side of me, who is selling these are the people who have access to the rights of the books by M.A.R. Barker, who I had no idea who this person was. Their banner said uh like 50 years on an alien world, and it was a fantasy game. Um I just remember Will saying like I think I've heard bad things about that author, and I decided to look into it. The guy's dead, died in 2002, but he was like a Nazi. Like he wrote an alt fiction sci-fi book where the Germans won with like multiple quotes from Mein Kampf, and like talked about the genocide of the Jewish population, and then like was on the editorial board of a journal that talked about like revising history to be accurate, so like denying the Holocaust and stuff like that. Yeah, Holocaust skeptic, exactly. Um and so just like that's who I'm between. I'm between the people who are just slinging dice bags all day long and doing great, and a fucking Nazi, or the people who are selling the Nazis stuff. Um, and that's who Will and I are sandwiched between. Thankfully, we had Tabletop Tom from Tabletop Bookshelf, like kitty corner to us, so we had we had good vibes in our vision. Um, but just like wow, Gamehole's like, yeah, let's let them sell at this, and then that's just fine. And that's just the clientele. That's just the clientele. It's just people who don't give a shit about that sort of stuff. Um, and that's just the way it is. Ed Greenwood stopped by and hung out at that booth for a long time. He was a celebrity. Everybody fucking loved Ed Greenwood as he was walking around. Uh, he's a real weird guy too. Not the same as Barker. He's more just weird. The one RPG celebrity that was there that was a cool celebrity was the Traveler guy, the guy that made Traveler. He just had his own booth in the corner, um, and he was just chilling, slinging teas, slinging Traveler books. Every time Will went over there, they told him like great stories. Like it was a he was a cool guy. So he's the winner. There were 73, 74 guests listed on the Gamehole Con website. I believe Will did the count, and 4 of them were people of color. So, again, really giving you an indication of who is going to this and what the vibes are like there. Um, and like big names in role playing, like Chris Perkins, James Introcaso, Jeremy Crawford. Like these people never stop by any of the role playing game booths, any of the indie role playing game booths. Um, they have no interest in us, right? We are not the same hobby as them. We're not the same thing. Um, and sure, I mean, they're probably busy. They're probably doing a lot of stuff. But I saw them wandering the hall, and they never stopped by Tabletop Tom. They never stopped by us. Probably never stopped by Goose Poop. So again, I just don't think this is our crowd. Like this may be pitched as the largest game, role playing game convention, but I don't think it's. I think we are fundamentally different hobbies, um, and so yeah, it just wasn't good. Which does bring to at least some positive aspects. I dubbed it the 5 good hours every day. Um, it's okay if you don't. It's okay if you don't recognize those things. Um, the 5 good hours were the 2 hours before the con started and the 3 hours after the con ended every single day. Will and I split a hotel, so we would do breakfast every morning and we'd go to a coffee shop and get coffee and walk around Madison. It's a nice city. It's beautiful. So like solid 2 hour start to the day. And then 3-ish solid good hours after the hall closed, 3 to 4, um, where we would go get dinner. Um, good Adam Vass was hanging out with us. Adam is just such a good friend, such a great person. Um and Adam is vegan, so we went to get a different vegan joint. Actually, we went to the same one twice because it was so good. But we went to different vegan restaurants for dinner, and it was incredible. It was like just great food every single night, great company, just hanging out, talking with friends. Got to meet Aaron King for the first time, like in real life, and just like what an amazing person. Like I'd known Aaron and talked with Aaron online, but it was one of those things where it's like, okay, I actually get to interact with Aaron King in person, and just like one of the best people. Um, so it was really great getting to spend quality time with Adam and Aaron and Will, John and Bree from Breitbart, hanging out with them. Marco, Spicy Tuna, never met him before in real life. That was great. Tabletop Tom from Tabletop Bookshelf bought a shit ton of my books, and then like finally get a chance to like go say hi and be like, "You are awesome." Um, super nice guy. So like, and I'm sure I'm forgetting things. I apologize if I'm forgetting, but like, it was just a really good time hanging out with the indie role playing people in the 5 good hours before and after. We even played games on the first 2 nights. We had enough energy to play games, which literally never happens at these cons. We're usually too gassed at the end of the day. We played Oink games, which were just again like really simple games, but it was just like wow, we actually like sat around and played some games. How cool is that? Again, Monkey's Paw curling. The reason we could do that is because nobody was at the booth and we had plenty of energy. And then every night ended with Will and I watching trash TV in the hotel room. First night, Food Network. There were literally 3 different TV shows on in a row that were all burger themed. Uh, and I watched Storage Wars for the first time. So that was that was a good time. So good food, great company. It just sucked that I had to go to this con to make that happen. Which then kind of gets to like the closing points on was this worth it and future plans. From a purely monetary perspective, I did make profit. Did I make a lot of profit? Absolutely not. Um, Certainly not enough to kind of justify it from a money perspective alone. There was a very funny thing that happened on the first day where we get into my car. Um, ba- so I read Tony write the word baby, so I almost said baby got in the car. Will, Adam, Aaron, and I'm driving us all to our dinner location, and as we're getting into the car, I get like a email on my phone because somebody bought for something from my store, and the value of that order from my store was a third of what I had made the entire day. So it's like, all right, like, well, I'm not don't need to be here. I think if I had taken those same 5 days and been actively advertising my stuff, I would have made more money. Um, because again, you have to take away the cost of the booth, the cost of the hotel. You're eating food every day. Food trucks were there, by the way. They were hit or miss. Some of the food trucks were good, some of them were bad. But you got to eat meals every day. Gas to get there, all that. So like it gets whittled down. The one like boost in sales was connecting with retailers at the end. So doing a re-up with Board Game Barrister, who they have four different locations around Milwaukee. This is the person who posted the pictures online on Blue Sky a few weeks ago of the collection at the store with the purchases that they made of Will's games. Yeah, Glenn is amazing. Glenn is the nicest person in the world. But the because Glenn did some wholesale with Will and re-upped some of my stuff, and I think they said that they were now crossing 200 titles at Board Game Barristers of indie role playing games. Like, how cool is that? Um, so getting to I see Glenn at every con, and it's just always really really nice to see him. Um, and did a really big wholesale order to Noble Knight Games, which honestly was like the most sales I made. Like that was a huge chunk of my sales, like a quarter of them essentially. So the wholesale connection is there, I guess. And then like I had two other people who were interested in doing wholesale orders like after the con. So that might manifest into something that makes it worth it, as that I saw retailers that will order from me. But the other thing, I went into this. Yeah, it's not con specific at all, exactly. I went into this. Um, this is my first. This is not my first con since having a baby. I went to Gen Con, in which my child was 4 months old then. But my wife, who's a teacher, was on summer break, so she could watch our daughter during that time, and it was no problem. But this time, it's during the school year. Baby's a little bit older, a little bit more mobile, actually way harder to take care of. Um, and I had to be away from her for 5 days, right? Because it's a 4 day con, and you have to get there a day early to set up. Um, and that's a new calculation in my head. Just from like the logistics standpoint, we need childcare during that time, right? Like my wife can't just like not go to work for 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. She's a teacher. She's gonna go teach her kids. Um, and thankfully, we have family nearby, except my parents were out of town. They were on vacation. So I know, Tony, I see you. You're going to hold my baby. There was a baby at the con. I estimate he was probably about 10 months old, so a little bit older than my daughter. And that baby was super chill, did a really good job. Like, was at a booth the whole time, and I never heard him cry. Um, uh, but there's the logistics of childcare. But then for me, there were a lot of kids. I don't think I'm ever gonna bring my daughter to one of these as like a kid. It just seems like a nightmare to me. Um, but good on the people who endure through that. Um, for me, there's the cost that you cannot put down for uh in terms of monetary value, which is like being away from my daughter for 5 days is awful. She's my first kid, and like she's 8 months old, and she's awesome. And like being away from her for 5 days for what we got was not even remotely worth it. Like it's the easiest calculation in my head to go like, yeah, I'd rather make no money and be with my kid for 5 days than make the piddling amount of money that I made and be away from her for 5 days. Just in terms of like sales, I'll go into like specific numbers when I do my annual stream, just because I know some people are money averse and I don't want to like do that on you all of a sudden. But my most sold game was Rune. Rune and Slayers were my most sold games. They were like tied for most of the con. And the only reason Rune, I'm looking at my phone here, with the numbers. The only reason Rune had a much bigger distance at the end is because wholesalers were buying Rune from me. That continues to be the game that people buy from me. But I would say if I were to take away the wholesale purchases, just kind of estimating here, I would say Rune was slightly higher than Slayers. Um, but those two were kind of like the standouts. Like people bought those games. And then everything else didn't really sell that well. Which has sort of like helped me recalibrate how I want to change the booth in general, which there will be like a whole new booth set up at PAX that I think will really celebrate Rune and Slayers and the Novaverse and things like that. Um, but I like my bookstore setup. It's fun in premise, but most people don't look at most of the books. People are usually overwhelmed, and or they'll either come in with a very specific thing and say, "I like solo games. What is your solo game?" Or "I want I'm trying to play something not D&D. What do I play?" And so I like inevitably almost always point people towards Slayers and Rune. Um, or those are the games that people have heard of. They'll be like, "Oh, I've heard about this. I've seen this game before." Um, those two are like easily my most popular and well-known games. Um, so like Loot is there, but nobody's really buying Loot unless I get a chance to like really talk to them about it. um, which just means like while that display is a fun display, I don't think it's actually a very practical display. And so I think going forward with the like um zones or islands that I have in mind of like here's the Slayer zone with all the Slayer stuff, the pamphlets, everything like that, bundles. Here's the Rune zone, all the Rune like core books, supplements again with bundles and stuff. The Gila zone, which is where like my weird OSR game is gonna live, and the Novaverse. And just kind of having like 4 zones to like really just highlight those things, I think is infinitely smarter than like here's 15 different titles. Read the descriptions of all of them and then decide which one you want. I think being able to look at each of these zones and narrow in immediately which one is calling to you is going to be a lot more helpful. I know that's sort of like future plans for other cons, but what are my future plans for? Yeah, I agree, Mega Flare. I think that's going to be really great for shopping. I think it's going to help folks a lot. Um, Tony, I that's how Will does it too, which is really smart. Like solo and group play, or like those sort of helpful titles, I think is really, really a smart thing to do, and not at all how I was doing. It's So what are my future plans for Gamehole Con? Well, as you've probably heard me say multiple times, I don't really want to go back. Um, I didn't have the lemonade, Tony, that you've mentioned. I don't know what is. This a Madison thing or is it a Gamehole thing? I will give them one flower, which is they had an exhibitor lounge, so that there was a place where exhibitors could go. They had like little snacks, they had coffee. None of the coffee was good, by the way. Like a lot of the coffee in Madison was bad. Um, but it was just nice to have like a place. I literally there was a lemonade stand. There was Critical Hit Soda that delivered a pamphlet to every booth Friday morning about bringing you soda, giant jugs of soda. I'm not a soda person. So it does not appeal to me at all, especially when I read like all the weird flavors and shit they'll put into it. Sounds awful to me. Um, but I'm also like drinks coffee black kind of like I don't like sweet drinks. There was a food truck that was like lemonade and donuts, but it was like really far away from all the other trucks. I don't know why it was so far away. Um, cow steak. Um, so what is the plan for Gamehole in the future? Basically, not planning on going, but with one possible way that I would do it. And this is Aaron King's idea on the last day. As Will and I had been dissociating for the last 2 hours, Aaron King comes into the booth and says, "All right, I think we should come back next year." And my immediate gut reaction as I yelled, "Fuck you," at Aaron King, realizing just how visceral I was not ready for that. Um, And we all laughed. And then Aaron said, well, here's how we should do it. We should get two spaces, and we should do it basically like how other people do PAX and um, Gen Con. But rather than like getting two spaces and like five of us going in on it and having like the good luck press zone, things like that, like, and like it's just a big bookstore or something. Basically, just do an IPR or something. I don't know the exact logistics of it, but I think that's literally the only way that any of us would be interested in doing it again is if we all went in on a big space together and then you only had to do like one or two shifts and then you could either just not be there for the rest of the time or you could have time spent playing games and stuff like that. Um and that was like, yeah, I think that's a like a totally legitimate way of doing it, and I think if Aaron and other people can organize that in such a way, and they said that they would reach out in about a month, which is PAX time, so hopefully after PAX, um, with like initial ideas about this, like if we can make that happen, then I would go to Gamehole Con. And I think honestly, I would go to Gamehole Con, I would do my shifts, and I would go home. I don't think I would stick around. I don't think I would hang out and play games because I hate playing games with strangers. I'm not good at it. My social anxiety spikes too much. So like if I was playing games, I'd only want to play games with friends. And so like uh the idea of a con going to a con to play games is not appealing to me. Oh, that's one other thing is I should be more proactive about having my games played at cons and just paying other people to run them. Um, I think that's a valuable thing, and I just have never done it, and I really should do that. Um, so yeah, that's Gamehole Con in like 40 minutes or so. Wow, I wish Gamehole Con had been 40 minutes. Overall, super not worth it. Um, real bummer of a time, honestly. Like long stretches of real bummer of a time. But solid 5 good hours every single day hanging out with friends. And I just wish I didn't have to go to a con to do that. I also wish Chicago could get something together and organized and like host something like this. Because wouldn't that be cool? I don't know, Tony. I did see that. I saw posts about there was like no water at various places at the con and overflowing trash. C2E2 is not a good con for us. I asked Logan Dean about this because I got approved for a booth there. And before putting down the money, I reached out to Logan, who has done board games, which is way bigger than us. And he's like, no, don't do it. And I trust Logan has institutional industry knowledge that a lot of us don't. And if Logan, who worked for like the Cyanide and Happiness people, said that it's not good for board game people, it's fucking not worth it for indie RPG ass me. Absolutely not. Um, so I don't know. That's it. Um, yeah, they're super expensive. Exactly, Roland. Like it's there's a reason they're not in Chicago. Um, yeah, there's a reason it's not in Chicago because it's really expensive. Um, so I think like some like really small thing would be cool. Yeah, that David, that's another huge thing. Like people are like, "Well, there's a convention center in Chicago." And I go, "It's fucking awful to get to. Like it's not convenient in any way, shape, or form um to get to the McCormick. It's like no. Don't do that." Um but yeah, what Tony's saying here is like having them in Chicago but doing it like out in Schaumburg or something. Um where like everything is cheaper. There are convention centers that you can use that I'm sure are cheaper. Hotels are going to be cheaper. Not walkable. Um, that's the nice thing about Chicago. It's a walkable city. But the McCormick isn't. So monkey's paw curling once again. Um, yeah, Eric, I agree. Will's those guy posts were the best part of the con. hanging out with Will was truly a delight. The number of times we said to each other throughout the con, and especially on the last day, I could not have done this without you. uh, yeah, it was a very good bonding experience. I started drawing an isometric dungeon map, so I got that going for me. That's it. So yeah, that was Gamehole Con, which I'm bummed about, right? I'm not sitting here happy that this was bad and that I get to be like mad about this. I'm really bummed about it because it's like I said, it's the closest con for me now. 2 hours away. A 2 hour con? Or a 2 hour away drive to a con? It's amazing. Um but it just, the math isn't mathing. It just doesn't work out. The way that it works right now. Um So yeah, that's it. That's all. That's all I have to report. The one other thing, like I really wish there was a con in the first half of the year that was like geographically located near me. Um, that's the thing. Like Gen Con and PAX and this are all in the second half of the year. I need something to happen in the first half of the year to balance things out. And I'm not saying PAX is geographically located closer to me, but I can at least drive to PAX. I'm not driving to the West Coast. That just isn't going to happen. All right, I feel like we're just rambling here. Coming with you to Gamma? Yes. I don't have interesting like industry stuff. So yeah, that's it. My baby's still asleep, which is amazing. So it means I might actually get a chance to get some work done. I'm gonna go read the Dragon Slayers draft that Mike sent me and get it back to him so that we can get this PDF in people's hands. Probably gonna have it at PAX. There's a fun thing. You want to hold my baby? You come to Chicago. Will Yopes is the only person in all of the RPG community that has met my baby and my wife. That dog doesn't come anywhere near this office anymore. She stays downstairs, has no interest in being near me. Cool. All right, I'm gonna go work on Dragon Slayers. You all have yourselves a lovely rest of the time. It was awesome hanging out with you, Erica. You and the whole story crew were just like really, really cool. All right, I'll send you a cute picture of Clover. Don't worry, Tony. All right, folks, have yourselves a lovely rest of the day. Talk to you later. Bye.